Hello and welcome to another video. I'm glad you're here and I hope you're doing well. This is Jennifer McGuire. So today I'm sharing with you my grand plan for keeping up with birthdays in the new year. I will be honest, I am not good about sending birthday cards. I tend to send more surprise type of cards like thank you, thinking of you, and so on. But I want to get really good at the birthday card thing. So I came up with a plan and I thought I'd share it with you. First, I'm going to show you a bunch of birthday cards that I've created. Then I'll show you the system at the end. And it's really easy, and I think it might be just what I need for keeping up with birthdays. All right, let's get started with the cards. I am using my MISTI stamping tool today, along with a sticky mat from Brutus Monroe that will allow me to hold my cardstock in the same place every time. There is a little black guideline for an A2 card panel right at the center, and each time I will line up my card panel in that spot. I have also cut a bunch of pieces of cardstock that are all 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. Now, the stamp set that I'm using today is from My Favorite Things, and it's a fireworks stamp set. I thought this would be great for birthday card backgrounds, but would also be great for other celebrations. This is a fantastic layering set that is super easy. You do not have to layer it up just right, and I'll demonstrate that as we go. And it is just a fun way to make a colorful background. And the best part is I'm going to change up the colors I use on different panels so I can best have a color combination that would fit the recipient. All right, so I'm starting with white cardstock and I'm taking the largest fireworks from the set. And I'm starting with those and kind of placing them in different spots on the background. Notice that because my cardstock is in the middle of the stamping tool, the stamp images can hang off the edge, so I can really cover the entire background. Now, I am using a variety of inks today. I'm using Altenew, Hero Arts, Pinkfresh Studio, and others. Any inks would work here. Just grab whatever colors you like best. Now, once I'm done with my first piece, I just bend my sticky mat back, and that will cause the cardstock to pop off. Then I can move on to the next piece and line it up in the same black lines there at the center of the sticky mat. So I will always put my cardstock in that position so I know it'll line up each time. I did most of my backgrounds with white cardstock, but I also did some with light pink and blue, and then I ended up doing darker colors. I love the darker colors the most, so I plan to make more of those later on. But this is a great opportunity to try out different color combinations and use whatever pieces of cardstock you have left on hand. Now, if you caught my most recent video, it was a crafty gift guide for 2022. I mentioned the We Are Memory Keepers project cart. Here's proof that I use it all the time. Here is a tray from the cart where I've laid out all of the backgrounds that I'm working on. And I can pick it up and bring it to my work surface and then move it out of the way as I craft. And that just helps me to stay organized as I go. So now it's time for the second layer of these particular fireworks. The cool thing about this stamp set is on the packaging, they have circled together the images that are layered together, or supposed to be layered together. Now you could totally change it up with this set. That's one of the best things about this particular set, but I'm kind of following along with what they have. I did notice that their stamps have little arrows that stick off. That doesn't stamp itself, but it's as part of the back of the stamp. To help you know which way to orient them, you just would make a pencil mark when you line up the first one, then you can line up the second with that same spot. I didn't bother doing that. I just put them as best as I could, and I felt it was just fine. This is a very forgiving layering set. For the second image on each of these, I am using a matching color, mostly a darker shade of what I used before, but you can mix and match, you can do whatever you want. And notice how these simple layering or building images help to make for a great background very quickly. Now here are the darker colors of cardstock. For the first layer, I used the same color of ink as the background, but a slightly darker color, so you can see that tone-on-tone look already. Now for the second layer, I'm using white pigment ink, and look how that just shines. It really looks cool, and we'll even add some metallic ink later. So these were the ones that I ended up liking the most that were on the darkest cardstock, so I plan to go and make more of those. Notice how helpful it is that I have that sticky mat in my stamping tool. That allows me to skip the magnets for all of this stamping and put my cardstock in the same spot each time so I know my images will line up. If you use an acrylic block instead of a stamping tool, you definitely could easily use that for this stamp set because it's pretty easy to line up. Just look through the block and you can line it up and it'll look great. Here I'm stamping the final image for these large fireworks, and on the colored cardstock, I'm using a silver metallic ink from Honeybee. Now there are a lot of metallic inks out there. I don't know if this one is just super juicy because it's new, but this really does a good job giving a nice silver image without needing to heat emboss. Now you definitely could heat emboss if you want to, but to save time here, I'm just going with the silver ink. One thing I do want to note is you want to make sure you give it time to dry after you stamp it or heat set it because it's a very wet pigment ink that kind of sits on the surface of the paper and you don't want to smear it. But look at that beautiful silver shine. After I finished those large fireworks in the different spots, I'm going in and filling in the open spaces. I start by filling in with the biggest ones I can fit. The nice thing about this set is that it has lots of tiny images that you can go and fill in the little nooks and crannies. I was also certain to overlap some, but not too many. I want it to be a pretty filled background, but I don't want it to be too overwhelming. So I continued that stamping. Once complete, I took the littlest star from the stamp set and I'm stamping that into some of the nooks and crannies using either metallic ink or white ink, depending on the color of my cardstock. Funny thing, I couldn't find my acrylic blocks because I just reorganized some things and I forget where I put them. So I actually have my Stamp-A-Majig thing here to use as an acrylic block in case you're wondering why I was doing that. But this allows me to quickly add little pops of color in those open spaces. And check out all of the backgrounds that I was able to make. Because I changed up the color combos, I have a lot of different looks, so I can choose whatever would fit the personality of the recipient that I'm giving these cards to. I love these, but you could use absolutely any stamps you want. You could even use a background stamp or stencils. Just make a bunch all at once so they're ready to go. And just because we made a bunch of backgrounds that are similar doesn't mean all the cards have to end up similar. You can personalize these to make them very special. For example, this one is the card that I'm going to give to my mom. She turned 79 this month and she loves blues. So I'm making this one special for her. For this, I'm using the My Favorite Things Solid and Outline Number die set. And the cool thing about these dies is you can use them separately or together. If you use them together, you can create little shaker numbers, and that's what I'll do with this example here. Using the solid 7 and 9 dies, I've cut from blue cardstock, and I'm also cutting from acetate. When cutting from acetate, I find it helpful to put a piece of scrap paper between your cutting plate and the acetate. That will help to make the die cut better into the acetate and it'll cut very easily. I had some metallic ink on my scrap paper that I used for that, so now I just have to wipe that ink off the acetate. It comes off nicely. So now I have the solid 7 and 9 in navy cardstock and acetate. I used the outline 7 and 9 dies and cut 5 times from navy cardstock. You could do more layers or less layers. It just depends on how much shaking you want going on inside of the numbers. I used liquid adhesive to glue each of the layers together and put something heavy on it while it dries. And so I will have, I think I did 4 or 5 layers of these die cuts, and this will form the walls of our shaker numbers. Then I will put liquid adhesive on the back of that stack of outline numbers and glue it right on top of our solid navy number. I will do the same thing with the 9. Then I will set them aside while they dry because some of that adhesive might have oozed out and I don't want to put my shaker bits in until I'm sure it's dry. So let's create a little banner sentiment to go on top of the numbers. I chose the sentiment Make a Wish and I'm using this new banner die to cut it out. Now, I've had other banner die sets in the past, but what's cool about this one is it gives the look of dimension without much dimension to it, which is really handy. It has what looks like the little flags coming out the side, and instead of having a banner where you fold the edges, which gives dimension, this lays nice and flat. So I did the Make-A-Wish on the top banner piece. I stamped that to match my background, and I'm gluing it onto the bigger banner die cut. Both of these are cut from white cardstock. Then there are these two tiny little shadow dies included in the set. I cut those from a light gray cardstock, so it looks like a bit of a shadow there, and glued those in place. By the way, my background I did trim down a bit and added to a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card. My shaker numbers should be dry now, so let's add those onto the card. I put liquid adhesive on the back of them, and I can wiggle them and move them until they're centered and they're straight. We can fill our little shaker windows now. This is the fun part. I'm using Honeybee Tiny Crystal Diamonds. I'm also using some white pearls from Cat Scrappiness. And then finally, some flat little iridescent stars from Trinity Stamps. Now, the bigger or the more dimensional the bits you put inside are, the less movement you will get. Unless you made your shaker walls really tall, it will kind of hinder some of the movement, but I'm okay with that. I don't want all the bits to fall to the bottom or get stuck in one of the spots. So by filling it pretty full with different size bits, I will have a little movement, but a lot of shine. Once I have filled in the wells with our shaker bits, I'm adding on top of it the acetate numbers that we created with the solid dies. After I've added the numbers, I'll put something heavy on top to give that some time to dry. Then we have our final outline numbers to put on top to give it a clean look. I cut these from silver matte cardstock so that it would really stand out. And look at those fun shaker windows that we created using numbers. This was a great way to make this card extra special and personalize it for the recipient. I completed the card by adding the banner on top of the shaker windows, and I glued some of the Trinity Stamps Oh My Stars scattered on the background. Those really capture the light nicely and make it look like your background sparkles. Here you can also see that silver metallic ink and how it matches nicely with the matte silver cardstock I used on the 7 and 9. My second card uses all of the same products, but instead of doing shaker window with the numbers, I just layered them together. So I cut the solid numbers from light pink, the outline numbers from a darker pink, and just glued them together and added it to the card. So here I was able to use cardstock colors that matched the inks that I used on the background. So this one will be going to my daughter's best friend when she turns 11, and the colors are perfect for her. Okay, I did make a few cards that have this big birthday wishes sentiment, and I thought I'd show you how I made these because it's a great way to create a bold card pretty quickly. So I have the My Favorite Things Big Birthday Wishes die, and I've cut it from the center of a piece of white cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. That will be my template. I also cut the same die from various pieces of cardstock that match my card backgrounds. And I die cut it 3 times and glued the 3 layers together of each of the layers for dimension, but you could skip that if you want. I like that dimension. Now for my first card, I am lining up the template with my note card, which is cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I had trimmed down my fireworks background to be a little smaller and already added it to that card. So I've temporarily taped that template onto my card, and now I just put adhesive on the back of each of the letters and pop them in to the opening on the template. So the template is just helping me to get the spacing just right for these letters. It would be a big hassle to try to get them lined up on my own, so using the template is a big time saver. And I will use this template over and over again on my different cards. My Favorite Things does have a few different dies with different sentiments with this style, and it's a great way to really make a bold, fun card. By the way, after I glue a letter in, I do put something heavy on it because I really want to make sure that it dries connected so that I'll easily be able to remove my template. So after I've added all the letters in and given it some time to dry to make sure my letters are secure, I can take the template off. So I just carefully do so by pulling up from one end and then the other end. Before you know it, it'll pop off and you can use that template over and over. So on this one, I used bold black letters, and I did add some of the Trinity stamps Oh My Stars in the background for that bit of sparkle. The black cardstock that I used for these letters is the Tim Holtz Black Heavy Stock. I had mentioned that in my crafty gift guide. It is the darkest black cardstock that I can find, and it has this velvety look to it that is gorgeous. Since these letters are so big, I really like that I used that cardstock because it looks even better in real life. So I did two with the large black letters, and then this next one, I used one of my navy backgrounds, and then the letters, I did 2 layers of white die cuts, and then for the top layer, I used Simon Says Stamp Silver Matte cardstock. I like how this has a different feel than our last 2 cards. Now, I like the dimension of those stacked letters, but you could also just do 1 die cut thick or even do an inlay of those die cut letters in the fireworks background. Now, one of the best reasons to use a big, bold sentiment like this is that you can put something on top of it without covering up too much. You can still read it. Here I use the My Favorite Things in Good Hands die set and the Pop the Champagne die set. I created a hand, a little glass of champagne. I'll put the champagne glass into the hand and glue it over the I and the G. Now, because the letters are so big, even with this on top, you can still read the greeting. So you could put a little stamped critter on there. You could put some balloons, lots of things you could do. But I thought this glass of champagne was really fun. I did use a white gel pen to color in the little bubbles on the champagne itself, and I used some little bubble gems coming out of the champagne glass just for some sparkle. And I put a bracelet on the hand using gold matte cardstock. That bracelet is included in that hands die set. So here it shows how you can kind of change up even the same design to kind of personalize it to the personality of the recipient. Now, this card design is a great chance to use different birthday or celebrate die sets you may have. This one's from Gina K Designs. I cut the shadow from white cardstock, the happy from the Tim Holtz Black Heavy Stock, and the birthday from silver matte cardstock. I glued that together and added it to this coral fireworks background that is on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch note card. I did use the Trinity stamps Oh My Stars in the background, and we have that silver metallic ink. So although it's a pretty simple card design, it has lots of shine and lots of interest. So these are the only cards that I was able to finish as of now. I'm going to save those backgrounds so I can use them for some other things or make more birthday cards as they're needed. So look at how many I was able to create. I love all the different colors, such fun. And I did go through my stash and find different birthday and celebration die sets, so I have those ready to go whenever I'm ready to create again. But for now, I wanted to show you my plan that I've created for my birthday card organization. I'm really hoping that this helps me to stay on track of birthdays this year. And again, I'm just at the beginning stages of putting it together, but I always like to have a little project to do right after the holidays, around the new year. So this will be what I try this year. So I start by taking my birthday cards that I have completed, if I have any completed. I do have these today. And I pick a matching envelope to go with the card. I always like to use a colored envelope because it really pulls your whole handmade card together and gives it a nice package. I put the card and matching envelope together into a card sleeve. I'll link below to the ones that I use. I often reuse these or mail my card in these sleeves. I'll link to a video where I talk more about that up here on the top right. So first, I put my card and matching envelope together in the sleeve. While I finish these, I'll talk a little bit about my plan. In the past, I had a 3x5 card with name, address, and birthday for everybody I send cards to. I will link to a video that shows more about that system if you want to check that out instead. It's linked here on the top right. What I plan to do this year is have a container with lots of pockets in it. Each person will be assigned a pocket. I've only done 2 so far, and they're fake names because, I don't need to share all my family and friends' addresses here. What I will do is have a pocket for each person. So here we have Dylan Die Cutter and Sally Sue Stamps, 2 of my loved ones. These are stamp pockets, what I normally store my stamps in. I have cut a white insert to go on the inside, and I've written the person's name and birthday at the top. In there on that white insert, I also have their address, so I have it ready. And below that, I could put like anniversaries if I wanted to. Then below that, you can see it says 2022 fireworks birthday. That means in 2022, I sent a fireworks birthday card to them so that I don't accidentally send a card that's too similar in design 2 years in a row, or maybe to their spouse. I can keep track to make sure everything stays different. Now in the sleeve, I can store any cards that I've prepared for them so that they'll be ready to send out. If I don't have a card ready, I just have the pocket with the information in my container organized so I know what I need to still make. I will have dividers, I'll show you those in a moment, for each month of the year. So behind December, we'll have Sally Sue Stamps and anybody else with December birthdays. Behind January, I'll have Dylan Die Cutter and whoever else has January birthdays. So I'm hoping this helps me to stay organized. Now I did take this one step further, and I'll show you here in the photo. I have a label maker that I use to print the addresses to put on the envelopes. I'll link to the label maker that I use. I have already printed 3 or 4 of Sally Sue and Dylan's address labels, and I'm keeping those in the pockets also. So in the pocket, I'll have the card I have ready and address labels. So anytime I want to send them a card for any reason, the address label's ready. I had considered making a template for this white cardstock insert, but you know what? I want this to be a time saver, and so just writing it simply was good enough. Okay, so I have these pockets. I'll make one for all the different people I would like to send birthday cards to. This is what I'm going to do for a divider. I just cut cardstock to be the same width as these card pockets, but taller. And then I laminated it so it's nice and sturdy. And I did round the top corners. I'll put January at the top of one of these dividers and put the January birthdays behind that. And I'll have a divider like this for each month. I'm sorry I don't have those dividers completed to show you, but I think you get the idea. Again, this is a work in progress for me, and I'd love to hear if you have additional ideas. And if you sit down and make a bunch of cards at once, like I did here with these birthday ones, you can think as you make them who it would go to, and then just put it in the pocket of that person. So you don't get confused and you don't get messed up, and you remember to send out your cards. All right, there you have some birthday card ideas and hopefully a good plan for organizing our cards for the new year. If you are interested in the supplies I use, they are linked below in my YouTube description, and you can head over to my blog for a lot more information. At the end here, I'll link to a couple other videos that might be of interest. I appreciate you spending this time with me. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you soon.